Welcome to episode 7. I am very excited for this day. I have some sexy phlegm, but that's okay, Amira, because we have such a special guest that there's no way we could ever cancel this. I'm excited to introduce everybody to Rebecca Gordon. The way that I've heard you described is the goat of astrology because you are the astrologer for the astrologers. You are the one who runs an astrology school and you've graduated 1,000-ish astrologers. I don't know what your number is. News media and everything on top of being an author and someone who's able to apply astrology to business and love. How is that for an intro, Rebecca?
I'll take it. Thank you, Michal. It is such an honor to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for pronouncing my name so well.
I got this, didn't I?
Yeah, she got it. I can tell when people have been practicing. All right. So do we want to start with how you and I met? And then we could talk about the two of you connecting as well?
Absolutely. Sure.
Rebecca, we met in an interesting way in an airport for the first time.
That's right. And we met through a very special mutual friend, didn't we?
Yes. Some of the best connections that I make is through a connector. And so we're speaking of Amy Van Doren, who is a beautiful, clairvoyant, magical matchmaker.
And a wizard.
How do you know her through just the world?
Yeah, New York. Like we've both been in the New York kind of underground and scenes for like 20 years or so. And,
beautiful.
So
yes.
We've crossed paths over many decades. But we finally started connecting more, I think, in the last year. So, yeah, I mean, she basically called me up one day and said, Rebecca, I'm creating a retreat. It's an experiment. Would you like to come with me?
You're like, I like science. I like experiments.
Yeah. And I thought, an experiment? She goes, yeah, like a love experiment.
Yes.
And I'm like, I don't know what that means. But, whenever Amy says jump, I'm like, okay, hi. It's like that. Like, I trust her. I trust this one implicitly. And so I'm listening. And she's like, yeah, there's this woman, Michal. You're going to meet her. You're going to love her. She's wild. She described you like a little bit, not that much. But I was like, okay, I got to meet this Michal. Amy recommends a Michal, and they're co-hosting a retreat together. Also with, I'm sorry, I can't remember her name. Nix, yes. Yeah. Nix in Dominican Republic. So yeah, that's how I met you. And then I arrived and I met you in all of your juiciness.
It's a good way to put it, actually.
What?
Juicy. I like it.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah. That's what I call her.
Well, it's interesting just for me, of course, I know you in many different lights, but not professionally so much and not in these circles. But of course, none of your professional connections are only professional. They all morph into much more than that. And so through these experiences, I've heard you described in one word many times. And so it's interesting to hear each time what somebody describes you as and whether I relate to that. And I love that one so much, actually.
Actually, me too. So I like to, I want to talk about how I met you, but I want to just bring up really fast the magic of how you did that, because one of the tricks to connecting with other people is to be able to name what you see, to compliment them, or you remind me of this and this person or whatever. And they go, oh, and when you did that with me, when you like felt my energy and you're like, I'm calling you juicy, that's what you are. And every time she saw me, because we were in the Dominican for 6 days doing our science experiment of romance, every time she saw me, she's like, good morning, Juicy. And I'm like, yeah, I'm Juicy. And I think it's just such a magical thing that you could do with someone else because they can see themselves in that light.
It's an energy read and a relatability at the same time,
Yes. And she also had me listen to the Juicy song.
The Juicy Fruit song.
I didn't know that it was that deep, but I'm like, that so relates,
Michal, you are definitely the only Juicy I have ever met. And I put the song on repeat. We probably danced to it like 10 times in a row, Juicy Fruit. Yeah.
We did.
Yeah, we never stopped.
Yeah. So my impression of you when we first met is like you were getting from the airplane because you were in Colorado or you were at a film festival. I don't know exactly before you were going to this. And I was like, okay, she is all over the world. And
Yeah, I flew straight from Sundance into DR. Yeah.
yes. And so we met in the airport. And then I remember that when we got into our taxi, when we arrived to the Dominican, you felt the familiarity with the place because you were like, I've been here. My childhood was here. And you started to share stories about your father's an anthropologist and you would live there and you just like sense
fascinating.
You sense the feeling. And I was like, whoa, what's happening? And I'm personally fascinated by people who have grown up in many different cultures because it allows for so much versatility
and perspective. So much perspective that you can bring to the table, and even in our short conversation, which is not, the depth of how you guys met that. Yeah. I mean, getting into just the pieces of your childhood, but how much that has impacted your ability even to relate to people and cultures and the shift in perspective you've had. Anyway, we're digressing a little bit, but just to tie into that, it's a beautiful part of who you are.
How many places did you live in as a child?
I could not count. Honestly, it's we were in many countries. Not all of them I lived in. The places I lived the longest that were not the U.S. were Venezuela, Dominican Republic, and West Africa. And Guinea, French West Africa. Those were the places we lived the longest. So this story is actually incredible, though, because it turns out I used to live exactly where Michal and Amy's retreat was. And I just want to say one thing, if I can, that I forgot to mention that Amy said to me. She's like, Rebecca, I don't like any matchmakers, but I like this one. It's the only one.
You're going to get in trouble for that. But yeah, I'll do a podcast. It's not true. She likes other ones too, but I did feel special when she said that. When I watch you like have that connection to the place, I was like, whoa, what's happening with this lady? And I think for some people, they feel a lot of pain from moving around as a child and what that experience is like. And then with you, I don't know, it seems to me like you're a child of the universe. And maybe you've always been. Is that right?
I'll take it. Child of the universe. I mean, we all are, right? We're all come from stardust. We're all childs of the galaxy and everything. I mean, it definitely shifts your perceptual awareness. I think especially, the contrast between West Africa and like suburban America, which was like the most stark.
This is what I meant by your perspective.
Yeah. I was like 13 coming from like this rich tapestry of like song and dance and color, life force, energy, like talk about juicy. I mean, every day, like the colors were bright. There was dancing, there was singing. There was just like a joy. And a power in the air. You felt alive just walking out of your house.
And connected.
And then you see what we've created in our whole suburban sprawl here in America and
running just on hamster wheels.
Desaturation. Yeah, hamster wheels. And what are we doing? And I mean, I think the whole question of like the purpose of humanity is definitely resonant right now too, more than ever in the wake of AI and everything.
In whatever platform you're looking at, whether it's from a tech, political, socioeconomic, and whatever it may be. It's dire, climate change in many, many, many capacities. So you're not wrong, right?
There's a lot. Absolutely. And there, the question for living was really, I mean, it felt like every day was a joy. Every day was a ritual. And so I think coming from those perspectives of like ceremony and ritual and joy, and also coming back to this, I definitely had an interest in the occult world and what was unseen. And like, I kept thinking, is this all there is? Like the song, let's look under the rug. Let's see behind the curtain. What more is there out of life here?
Wow. So I think what we're going to do now, we started to talk about.
Well, can I just say, because it's a good segue into our meeting, which was the earlier part to this intro, which is just that, we initially were just going to have a 15-minute quick get to know each other chat that quickly, or rather organically, turned into a nearly 3-hour chat. And, what I was so taken by is the origin story, really. And I kept kind of asking you, I kept kind of picking at, how did you kind of turn this into a business? And he kept kind of taking me back to the point that it wasn't an intentional thing that was set out and then achieved, but that it really roots really back to your childhood, and that it kind of was paying attention to yourself and signs around you, and it really the journey that took you into this bookstore. And I don't want to tell your story, but just that it happened really organically in childhood and then evolved into sort of these choices you made that took you into this path. And so I think that's maybe a segue a little bit into this next part of the story, because I'd love for you to tell. I would love for you to tell your origin story. Okay. Exactly.
Wait, so just really quick, we're going to break it down. So we'll talk about how she became an astrologer. I want to know what astrology is. Let's go back to the retreat for a moment and talk about the scope of what's happening in this world. And you're also going to do a meditation like that, right?
That's a good outline. Perfect.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Okay. Sounds like a good plan, Michal.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
I think it just is such a genuine way to get to know you. Like that origin story was so beautiful.
Thank you, Amira. So yeah, I mean, I grew up in the city, right, where you couldn't see many stars or anything, and we lived all over the world. And I think my father is definitely a curious person, and his attitude in life was always like, there's no excuse for a lack of curiosity.
Lifelong learning. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And
there's no excuse.
No excuse.
It's like punitive.
Curiosity.
Like you have to wonder and ask questions about everything and leave space for that, leave space for not knowing. We don't have to jump to an answer quickly either. And so I grew up in that sort of space of asking questions. I mean, he's an interviewer too. His job is to ask good questions. So I was in a lot of those rooms listening to people being interviewed, just learning, being curious about people. And at the same time, concurrently, I was like obsessed with the sky. So, I mean, these two things eventually married, but I was looking at the skies in New York, which you couldn't see that much. You could see like Jupiter, Venus. And then in Africa, you see like the Southern Cross, and you have a totally different sky everywhere. But I just tracked that wherever we went. And
wow, I thought of that literally every child knows Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star.
You're right.
And you were embodying that as a child. We sing it to our children all the time, but we never unpack it.
Well, and the sky is accessible to everybody as well, right?
Twinkle.
So no matter where you are, what your resources may be, the sky is accessible to everybody.
It is. Wait, and I just thought about the lyrics to that song, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, how I wonder what you are.
Mm-hmm. Up above the sky.
What are you?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's exactly it. I was like, what are you? Are those suns that people are living around? And I was just laying in the grass when I could at night and staring up at the sky when we moved out to the suburbs when I was 13. And I was looking, like imagining that literally every night in the grass and thinking about who are the people living on those planets or whatever they are that are circling those suns and stars.
Wow. Such a visual. I have a visual of you right now doing that, and it's so beautiful.
What happens in the song after that? How I wonder what you are up above the sky so high. Like a diamond. I don't know.
Like a diamond in the sky. Yeah.
Beautiful. So, yeah, twinkle little stars. The stars were twinkling, and I was connecting and wondering and being curious, because there's no excuse for not. And that happened for quite a while. So I was probably, 13, 14, reading a lot of books on things like I Ching, and I'd found a Carl Jung book. I was just getting into occult or psychology, myth, and symbols, whatever I could find. This was, upon coming back from Africa and me wondering what is this life even, about. And South Carolina was just also like a very racist, backwards place too. So I kind of needed something that made sense to me as well.
Pulled from one complete reality and inserted into completely something different.
Yeah, I mean, certainly. So I was just babysitting across the street at a neighbor's house, and the kids had gone to sleep, and I found some books called Astrology. Not astronomy. I was like, I love astronomy. I've been studying astronomy like from when I was a kid. But this was astrology. So I pulled them all down off the shelf and I opened everything up, and I was just in a moment like, what the fuck? Oh my God, this is a whole compilation of psychology, history, astronomy, science, everything, human emotions, all in one. And I'm like, this is the whole substrate of reality. And I was just, my mind was getting blown. So I opened up all of her books and I started reading them like crazy on her kitchen table. She came home that night like, oh, you found my books. Oh, you found my astrology books. And I look at her, I'm like, yes, so we got to talk. And we did. And she's like, yes, I'm an astrologer. And I have a little bit of a critical mind. So I was like, is this for real? I don't know. Can I trust it? Because it was too like, hey, is the whole world just a map? We all have a map that we can follow, a birth chart. This is crazy. Everybody should have access to this if this is true. But I was kind of doubtful in the beginning because I was like, how could this even be real? And we didn't know about it. Like my whole life, nobody told me, I went to the library. My dad had taught me to do like research papers. So I did like he's like, yeah, do a thesis, do a research paper on it. So I got all the books
evidence,
out.
right?
Yeah.
Evidence-based thought.
Right. Try to
how
prove it.
scientific things were growing up too. So you were saying you found astronomy well before astrology when we were chatting. So it's part of what I found so interesting.
Yeah, astronomy came first for sure.
The science of it all. Yeah.
Absolutely. I knew everything about like the Kuiper Belt, Andromeda, and everything like that up until I was like 12. I mean, from probably the age of like 4 to 12, I was obsessed with astronomy. So yeah, and fast forward, that woman across the street, my neighbor, started mentoring me in astrology every Sunday night. So she started teaching me. Wow. And then my dad would pick me up from her house, even though it was across the street. He would just walk over to take me back. And then they started a relationship, and then she married my dad.
I don't think you told me that part.
I didn't tell you that part. They got married, so then the astrologer moved in.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Okay.
See, I told you it was a great origin story.
And then right? And then my stepmother
the overlap
was the astrologer who I had access to all the time. We could be like, the moon's in Leo, let's go shopping today. It was kind of like that. So
an actual guide.
Yeah.
Can I tell you Rebecca's stories? Keep me at the edge of my seat.
I told you this was a
I would
great
like
story.
another one. You take a pass.
We also touched on a little what astrology is too. She
Yeah.
gave us a great definition really organically.
Can you give us one more? Because I've heard you do a few definitions of astrology. Can you give us another about the language of, I'm going to let you do it.
Okay. I mean, there's so many ways you can define astrology, right? And my definitions are probably far from what you would read. Because if you look on Wikipedia, sadly, it's called a pseudoscience, which I can't stand. And that needs to be changed. And I do think with the advent of quantum physics and that they're still calling theoretical physics, that astrology will soon get into bed with science. And other things too, and magic, but we're not there yet.
Evidence and studies, and we're getting there. But yes,
we are.
The more we study, and the more correct. But yes,
yeah,
more of it.
To me, astrology is the poetry of life. It's the language of energy, and so it's the one thing that speaks into every single thing on this planet, from the weather to tennis to grandmothers to socks to the way the cabbage is growing, the way that flower grows, to the way you feel in your relationship, to what kind of careers this person best suited to. Astrology speaks to everything. Historical cycles, weather, people. So it's the language of energy that is the substrate that informs all verticals of reality. I look at it this way: the solar system is like this grand symphony, right? And the sun is the control center. It's like the lighting everybody up. It's like the conductor of the orchestra. It's shining out the light. And each planet is a different instrumentation. Each planet rules a different part of our humanity. Like the moon rules your emotional body, the waters. Mercury, the mind. Venus, love. Mars, anger, war. Jupiter, luck, openness, abundance. Saturn, contraction. Neptune, transcendence. Uranus, the breakdown, breakthrough, and cutting away. And Pluto, death. So we have this mirroring, this beautiful mirroring, the axiom as above, so below, because everything here is sort of mirrored in this larger template. So let's just imagine it like it's a song, first of all. Each planet is moving around the sun in its unique instrumentation, and suddenly you're born. And it happened to be like when, Michal, you were born, all these planets were in the sign of Pisces. So let's say that, resonance, that unique measure of the orchestra is imbued in your spirit, and you're emanating that soundtrack. You are broadcasting that soundtrack every minute of your life. When you walk into a room, the way people respond to you is because they feel that soundtrack.
It's juicy fruit.
It's so juicy.
And that it is specific.
And it is juicy.
That universal moment in which that all alive, and so it's it's specific to you, which is why those chart readings are so fascinating.
Can I just ask
Hold on, it's the energy of that moment,
Wait a
that
minute.
universal moment, and that uniqueness of that moment in the galaxy that's embodied in you.
That is when you were birthed.
Yes, and to be fair, that's probably literally one of the juiciest moments of the cosmos, because all of the planets were in the very watery sign of Pisces, which is just juicy. It's water. Literally everything was in water at the moment she was born. And so when I called her juicy, it was I had no idea.
Her birth, but what her birth was.
Reading her chart later, I was like, well, she actually is very juicy.
Yes.
And most people are. You can, that's like how the oath of Hippocrates.
We discussed that. Yeah, we had a really interesting.
Yeah.
Keep going.
And the ancient doctors would look at astrology, and they would say if somebody's very watery, they wouldn't call them juicy, but they had another word. Funny enough, they would call it what you said at the beginning of this podcast, and phlegmatic. You said mucus, they would call it phlegmatic. And if somebody had a lot of water in their chart, they would be a phlegmatic person, so they should take these herbs to kind of reduce the phlegm. And it's funny, you're juicy, and that those are juicy issues. Phlegmatic.
Can somebody keep tabs on how many times we said juicy in this episode?
Yeah, right. If you get the number correct, then we have to think of a prize.
I just want to share something that, I have this thing that I do that I've realized about myself, where I am obsessed with love, and I fall in love with people. And I met you, and I'll share about why I fell in love with you so quickly in a moment. But literally everywhere I went, I was telling everybody about this astrologer. And I'm just like, astrology. And they were like, chill out. Because I've never been into astrology. It's never been my thing. I haven't been like, oh yeah, Pisces are all the same. I've never been like that. But you blew my mind. And I was talking to another matchmaker, and she was like, it just doesn't make sense to me that everybody who was born in the same moment, in the same city, but they all just have the same personality. So what would you respond to a naysayer like that, of what really connects you all just because you were born in the same place?
We had that chat too.
Yes, Amira and I spoke about this. I mean, soul. So your orchestra, your juicy symphony was happening at the exact minute and hour you were born in that location. And so were many other people having that exact same birth chart. So what's the difference? How does astrology work? Well, in order to, in my opinion, there's no proof for any of this, but I feel soul. There's soul, and soul is something else. So the birth chart is like a landscape that the soul enters. And your soul is going to need to figure out how to work with that landscape. Now, one soul could have been born in Philadelphia, another soul could have been born in West Africa, another soul in London, all with similar birth charts. And based also in their environment and their family and everything, that there's going to be completely different but similar life experiences. So here's the kicker. You know what's the same? If you talk to those people with the same chart as you, you're going to find, oh, at 35, I had a bad breakup too. Interesting. At 14, I did that also. And you're going to track your life and notice similar things happening at similar junctures of time.
And they won't necessarily be the exact same things, but similar phases or similar sort of transitions in life. It won't necessarily be the exact same.
Does anyone do this? Does anyone connect people to someone who has a chart that's similar?
No, but we should do that. If you know two people.
I would just ask Johnny Immerman. Johnny Immerman do this.
Yeah, right. He's the one who builds these databases and builds these complex ways of bringing people with similar experiences together.
Oh.
Yeah. Quick thing about Johnny is that we asked everybody who's coming to this romance retreat, like, what are you going to contribute? And some people were like, I'm going to bring a listening ear. I'm an active listener. And then you said, I'm going to talk about astrology. And I was like, okay, sure. I don't know what that means. And then somebody was like, I'm going to bring handmade mittens. It's just, So it was a great, what she did.
That's awesome.
So the day of your talk that morning, I was talking to you and I was like, do you know Johnny Immerman, episode 4. Do you know Johnny Immerman? And you were like, no, never heard of him. Why? And I was like, I don't know. Just I don't know. And then that night you were going to do your talk at 8:30. And she was going to talk about an intro to astrology and the meta crisis, essentially, right?
Oh, well,
in some ways.
No, it wasn't. Sorry, Michal. It wasn't the meta crisis. I was just talking about the future of humanity, where we're going in the future.
But we looked at where we are now, which is the...
Okay.
Were we not going to talk about the meta crisis today? Okay. So she's going to do this talk at 8:30. It was a lot of topics. I was blown away. But even before she comes in the room to do it, at 8:15, I got an email from Johnny saying, hey, here's a talk that you might be interested in. And he forwarded me an email of you speaking on Valentine's Day at the Noya House, 15 minutes before you were about to talk. And I was like, what just happened? That was insane. And then when you started doing your presentation, I was so overwhelmed by the fact that Johnny had emailed me to come to New York to go to an astrology talk with you. And you blew my mind because it gave me a lot of hope for the future when you put astrology, connected it with the history of the world and where we're at now.
Yeah. So, okay, two things there. One, the level of synchronicity.
Yes.
And entanglement. So, I mean, there's definitely, if you believe in astrology, you believe in fate. And if you believe in fate, you believe in some degree of entanglement theory. And so I think what's happening here is entanglement, which is frequency, like attracts like. You know, people say your vibe attracts your tribe. If you're at a certain frequency, connecting to certain people, you're hitting that tuning fork and you will align with other people and circumstances.
Energies match energies.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Do you believe in fate?
That's a tough question for me to answer, but I think I do things. I think certain things are certainly fated, and I think that there are certainly things that have a greater pull. You know, there's definitely energies that are existing around us and that we exist in.
Interesting. Sometimes we talk about.
I don't mean that to say.
Watching
the reason I say that is I also firmly do believe in change. It's hard for me as a scientist to say I believe things are completely fated, while I also firmly believe in, you know, the will that we have as humans to change our outcomes. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, and that's such a good answer. I agree with you.
I don't know. That was right off the cuff. I really don't think I've ever
test.
really thought of it that way.
I mean,
it's a big question to
they
say,
don't
like,
negate
do you
each
believe
other.
in fate?
I want to know
You know?
what's on your big old brain. I want to know.
I don't necessarily even think that they're mutually exclusive. I have to say, as a scientist and as a doctor, you know, and as somebody also who personally is someone who lives with a very, very, very rare disease, that you know, I was trained to use a system in which doctors, I think, fall into often believing that if we don't have the tool to measure it or to define it, then it doesn't exist. That is obviously not true, not in medicine, not in science, and certainly not in the greater sense of the universe. So, you know, I think that we have to remember that we are humans. We're using tools to measure things. Just because we don't have the tool to identify it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist.
I wish that all scientists thought like you do. I mean,
because I
say
would
that
have
again.
an identity
You have
otherwise.
the true mind of scientists, though. The way that
you have to have that curiosity to keep looking.
Right.
We want the evidence, but because we don't have it right now doesn't mean we don't have it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the openness to even challenging the evidence we have and wanting to challenge the evidence that we have at hand that brings you into the next level of thought.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Is there no category for you?
Well, so listen, the truth is in the autoimmune world, we have finite points that we've addressed, that we've defined on a continuum. You always hear me talking about things on a continuum because anyway, we digress. And the problem is that if we don't have a marker for it, like, a marker that identifies rheumatoid arthritis or a marker that identifies Sjogren's, we haven't found the marker to give the categorical symptoms a name, then somehow those categorical symptoms don't exist as a disease. No, of course not. We just haven't defined it yet.
This is exactly the case with astrology and why it's not a science.
That's why I was explaining that, I can't sit here and can't say it doesn't exist.
Exactly. We can't continue to think that the scientific method
that we have at hand applies.
It is perfect.
It's not. Of course not.
It's not.
Constantly needs revision. Correct.
Right. And we have to think about the revision of these things in context to what is coming up in the world and emergent right now. So it's
it takes an enormous amount of openness as a scientist because you're built on fact.
Absolutely.
And it's built on the concept that you need something to be finite to believe it. But if you're always looking for the finite and you only hold on to the finite, then you will never take a step forward into what you haven't yet defined.
Yeah, it's such a dance between structure and liminality.
I talk.
She blows my mind all the time. I can't take it. So I keep her around.
That's why we talked for 3 hours. It was like just having a conversation. Easy conversation.
But Rebecca, what is emerging right now? You just talked about what is emerging now.
Right. So we talked about just now the entanglement and the fact that all of these things were connecting for you randomly at that moment, and that quality of fate. And then the other point was like the talk that I gave at your love experiment retreat was about what is emerging right now, and I think it's something that we really have to speak into. And I'm urging astrologers to get out there and speak in worlds that are not just astrological right now, because I think astrologers need to speak to ecologists. They need to speak to people in governance. We need to look
Corporate
at
business,
what in business, what in leadership,
so many applications,
in education. What does this big shift of planetary energy mean across all these verticals of society? So I'm just going to give you some context. So Pluto just moved into Aquarius, which happens every around 250 years. The last time that happened, we made a country, the United States of America, happened. 250 years is generally the length. 250-year markers mark beginnings and ends of empires. Like the Roman Empire was 2 Pluto cycles. It was around 500 years. So every empire is usually 250, 500, or 750 years. These, because they usually end and begin when Pluto comes back to where it was. So like this country is at, all right, it's time, checkpoint moment.
Another transitional moment.
Yeah. Okay, we can see it as a transition. We're going to certainly move through it as a country, but we will become something completely different.
Wow.
We are no longer what we were before. And that is a Pluto cycle. And we can look at any country throughout history. And so astrologers study cycles. It's kind of, our charts look a lot like what people in the finance world might look at when they study the markets. That actually looks quite similar. And we look at the cycle of Pluto. So that just happened. But this year is so pivotal because not just Pluto, but like 5 planets just changed sign. So what that means collectively is that all of our programs of the previous constructs of reality are melting. And there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of despair, there's grief out there, there's many feelings of what the fuck is going on that are completely resonant and coursing through our collective now. So astrology does some sense making of that because we can speak to these larger concepts, and the best ways we can work with them. Like we actually have a map. It's not random. Like cosmos means order. The word cosmos means order. There is order in the universe. There's a beautiful fractal order, and we're part of it, right? All we do as astrologers is we speak into that order. We talk about the frequencies and the patterns. And there's something about the act of talking about them, of putting a light on the shadow, that it allows us to also get out of the shadows. Like, do you ever realize that just when you talk about something, you realize an old way you were doing that, and then the fact that you've just shown a light on it, you don't do it anymore? So as
It's actually true, is actually literally and visually true as well. If you have a light and then you move it, you have actually changed or removed the shadow. If you then move it overhead, the shadow will be gone. I just don't know if for me, it's quite interesting the number of ways that applies.
I love that so much.
Right. So astrology is, a lot of times we're in an astrology session, we're talking, and the talking is simply putting light on all these aspects of self.
Yes.
Shifting that light
Right.
changes what you see.
And
I
then
think you shine, and when you do an astrology reading, and I experienced one with you, and I'm working it now into my matchmaking. And historically, it's been a part of matchmaking too. Let's be honest.
Yeah, well, and in many cultures, it's used.
That's right. And when you're able to do that, you can shine so much light by helping people understand the order of things, and it can make people feel hope. And we need that right now.
We definitely need that. We definitely need not only hope, but a way to move forward in action. Like people want, okay, what can I do? Resignation is not a good feeling. And I think there's a lot of that out there now too. So we could talk about, all of the planets. I mean, perhaps this is another podcast, but what the future looks like with all of the planets going into brand new signs. They're all going into fire and air signs. So one thing I could say is that reality was much more dense before. Like everything was in earth. All the planets were in earth and water signs. Things took longer. It was heavier. You got to climb up the mountain to get this. We're getting into a place where everything's in, all the planets in air signs. And if you just imagine and visualize these vast open frontiers where you have an idea and immediately it's out there in the collective. And there's a lot more porousness between you and I, and the velocity in which thoughts are shared. And this lends itself to things like telepathy and other kinds of technology trying to mimic that.
Wow.
So we're certainly moving into a new space. And I mean, there's a lot to say about that. But I do think like we have to like come back to say like, as a humanity together, we're at such a point right now where we have to redefine what it is to be human. I feel like we are, if you look at it from, humans always had a purpose. Like in the hunter-gatherers, okay, it was survival, right? And then agrarian, it's like, okay, grow the best crops, feed everyone. Like we're dwellers working here in the agrarian world, which was thousands of years. And then came the Industrial Revolution, and humanity was like, work hard, work in the factories, provide for your family, the church, the family, and all of these things. And that went on for a couple hundred years. And so we had that purpose, the work hard, work in the factory purpose. And then technology came up really in the 60s. It got bigger, and then 80s, 90s, And it was like, okay, press buttons, make zeros, manage the technology. And we got further and further away from the things that actually were human, like growing our food, taking care of our children, all of these things for the sake of capital. And if you follow this track, right now we're coming into this AI world, and that we really all need to be asking the question, what is our humanity here for right now? And astrology really does speak into what we're coming into.
Hmm.
I have my ideas about it. I'm curious. I'm curious what you all are feeling that's coming up right now about
Oh.
where we're going.
I'm feeling like the heiress then. That's what I'm feeling. We do have to wrap up. So, Amira, do you want to answer it in your 1-minute summary? Or do you want to just
Are
talk
we
off
at
the
that
cuff?
point
We're at the
already?
point,
We're at
yeah.
1 minute.
Yeah. Why don't you answer this and then we
Well,
can do a little.
No, wait, well, go ahead. I want to give you an opportunity if there's anything else you wanted to offer
Yeah.
or say. I don't know if you know it was the end of the
Well,
episode.
I mean, I would just say astrology does speak to the patterns and where we're moving as a whole. And one thing I am seeing is that like a new myth is emerging, a new myth of what it means to be human, and a new version of the hero or the heroine. And so it is up to us to create that. We are the ones that actually tell the story of the planets.
Yes.
And it is us who are ultimately here to be stewards of the earth and take in the next generations. And we don't have to just keep doing what's been done. Literally, every station just changed in the solar system. This is the beginning of a brand new story and a brand new myth. So I would encourage people to be in that moment of liminality and question, why have we been doing this?
Hmm.
And why are we going to keep on? There's no reason for us to keep singing the same tune when everything's moved on and there's a brand new opportunity. So live courageously.
Absolutely.
And be curious.
That's right.
Yeah. I love that. You ready?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, cool.
Ish.
That was beautiful.
As ready as I ever
Right.
am for these 1 minute summaries.
I'm putting on a 1-minute timer, and Amira is going to try to synthesize.
This one's a tough one to
Wait.
capsize.
Wait, you have
in.
something else?
We didn't do the meditation thing.
Okay.
For
Good time.
but it's a love thing.
All right.
It's regarding your masculine and feminine. I don't know if that would make
Did you do
sense.
it in a minute?
We
No.
can use the minute for this. Yeah.
All right.
Go ahead. Let's do that.
All right, let's
That's a
do it.
better way to
Are you
end this
sure?
episode.
Love
absolutely.
meditation us.
I wouldn't be able
Let's
to
do
do
it.
justice in a minute to this topic anyway.
Okay. Go for
Okay.
it.
So since here I'm in a room with super connectors and matchmakers and brilliant women, I would like to bring those things together in a meditation honoring our internal Venus and Mars, our internal points of connection. So if you're listening right now, I'd like to invite you to close your eyes gently and draw your attention to your chest and draw a circle there. Just imagine there's a circle inside of your chest. And if you're a New Yorker, you can imagine like it's a black and white cookie, one color on each side. And draw your attention to the right side of your chest first of all. And now that you're there, I want you to connect to, and whatever image comes up for you first, I'm going to say in the right side of your chest lives the masculine. The first image that conjures up, stay with that. Give it dimensionality, perhaps a color, more of a color, a name. It might be a rock. It might be a human. It might be somebody you know. It might be a chair. Whatever showed up there, allow it to take up space. And now I want you to draw your attention to the left side of your chest. Venus, the feminine. As I say the feminine, allow yourself to conjure up whatever image first comes to you. The first one is the most important. Whether it's a meadow or a woman you've had a crush on, it could be anything. Might be yourself. Might be an empty room. And so get clear on that image, get clear on the colors, the mass, the dimension. And now draw the circle back around both. And pretend they're both, the right side and the left side, in the same room together. Separate the wall between them. And see how they're acting with one another. Does one Does the masculine want something from the feminine? Does the feminine, what is their role? How are they interacting? Now, at this point, if you can, and if you will, invite both sides to a divine embrace and allow them to embrace. See how this shows up for you. And when you're ready, open your eyes. And I'll tell you what this means. Okay. So, first of all, would you like to share any experiences?
I mean, I just saw Divine Union.
Are you in a divine union?
I am.
That makes sense then. Yeah. So this is basically a mirror of your relationship. This is the relationship that lives within you at this moment. And that doesn't mean it can't change. But we all have a Mars and Venus sign. We all have an inner feminine and an inner masculine. Mm. And it's interesting to learn your Mars and Venus signs because those are the optimal expressions of the masculine and feminine that live inside you. And it is the divine union that your soul is always searching for. Mm. Now, often when people are in a marriage or beautiful divine union, they will feel that and see that and embody it very easily. But many of us that are not, we might see like an empty room or a rock or a chair or something random. And then we're invited to bring those symbols into human form and mass. And I take people on a meditation to bring those other inanimate symbols into what is their unique Venus and Mars sign. So I would invite our listeners to get to know your Venus and your Mars signs because those create your passion signature.
They get homework. They got homework. You could do a reading or you could research that.
That is correct. I do love readings as well.
Yes.
We could explore that together. And we're doing a talk at the Fittler House tonight on Venus and Mars as well. But this is an interesting exploration. And it's a meditation that you can sit with day after day and invite them into their humanness and into that divine embrace. And it is a way to invite love into your life.
Maybe so. Maybe we all invite love. Amira, do you want to say anything before we wrap up?
Not specifically, but just to reflect on that last exercise and not with the specifics, but that certainly did reflect very much where, I am at in my life as well. And even when you were guiding me through it as the scientist I am, my natural brain kind of wants to challenge things just because that's how I've been trained. So I'm sitting here, I'm thinking, I'm trying to work through these guided exercises, which aren't my natural practice. And at first, I'm trying to focus on it. And I saw just very simple geometric images. And I'm thinking, this isn't necessarily working for me. And then with your explanation, it certainly works. And it absolutely applies. And offline, we could have a separate conversation about it. But I just want to say for anybody that, thinks that this isn't necessarily for them, give it a try, give it a moment, and unless you ask the right questions or give yourself that opportunity, whether it's the exercise or the concept, you won't necessarily make the connection unless you try.
Oh, I love that.
Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you, Rebecca.
I know that's just the piece I had in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, just to reflect on that too, you're tuning into your subconscious at the moment in that, and the subconscious knows.
Absolutely, it does. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Michal.
Thank you,
Amira.
For being here with us.
It was beautiful.
Curious.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Loved spending time with you both.
Yeah, there's no excuse for a lack of curiosity. I think
oh my God.
That's part. Right in the camera. There's no excuse for a lack of curiosity.
No excuse.
That's my summary.
Yeah, that's perfect.